to be a lifelong student and practitioner of leadership, effective communication, and optimal performance. Today he'll be speaking on a few universal laws that affect us all. Andy, are you ready to join us?
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Man, thank you very much, sir. No, we'll just roll with this. I tend to project a little bit. So before we get going, we're going to do a little admin stuff, get that out of the way. All right. Thank you very much for leading out this morning, because I'm about to violate everything that you talked to us about. I just flew in from Denver, and boy, are my arms tired. But that's true. I really did just fly in from Denver. And this past week, my business, after over a year of just slogging through the mud, had a very, very big week. The result of that was all the work and support from the Academy. So when we do this little presentation today, I'm a trainer by heart, not necessarily a keynote speaker, so you're going to see some of these trainerisms come out in me. But I was trying to think of a way that I could give back to this organization that's given me so much. So I'm incredibly nervous about this, not for public speaking. I've been public speaking my whole life. I've done probably thousands of briefings. What I'm nervous about is, can I honor the message, and can I give you guys something back in a group that's poured so much into me? There's people that are not in this room right now that have literally impacted the trajectory of my life. They are where I want to be, and they've shown the way through kind of mapping out what I need to do. So there's no practice. There's no prep. This is a one-of-one. It's a Rembrandt. It's a gift just for you, because shocker, none of you are my avatar, as Doc McGee would say. So on a regular basis, we discuss things about stress response, kinetic, active threat attacks at schools, and those are super heavy topics. So what I tried to do was extrapolate a couple key concepts that I could push out to you, and I'm desperately, desperately hopeful that there's some value for someone in the room today. Outside of that, this is either going to be a very impactful social exchange or social suicide in front of a bunch of your colleagues, all right? So we're going to hope for number one. Before we get into that, I want you to understand that there's a lot of good energy in this room. I think our definitions of what a bad day is might be a little bit different. I pushed a squad car for 20 years in an extremely violent jurisdiction, and it taught me a lot about life. After that, I threw some stuff in a backpack, and I got an Emirates flight, and I flew to the most dangerous city in the world at the time and did 14 months there. And those lessons have stuck with me. And it taught me that a lot of things that we think are problems are not problems. So here's why I love this chapter. I truly look forward to coming to these meetings because in my mind, this is exactly what life is supposed to be. This is a little microcosm of the ideal world. And I say that because almost all of you, to a T, are not people that I would intersect with in my normal everyday life. I'd be willing to bet most of us watch different news channels, maybe, feel differently about certain things. We have different friend sets, we have different likes, we have different political beliefs, different religions. But once a month, for about 6 hours, everyone shows up in the room and it's chill. It's cool. Everybody's respectful. Everybody pours into each other and everybody tries to give something back. So I'm going to try and honor that message. And that's why I love this chapter so much. So that said, let's get into it. Before we start, I got to kind of introduce somebody that was the reason for me standing here today. I want to tell you about Mark Timothy Sorcy. Mark Timothy Sorcy was born in 1950 in Niagara Falls, New York. He was a sharp kid. By all accounts, very mechanically inclined. He used to take apart lawnmowers and put them back together and clocks as a kid, but he didn't do very well in like that 1950s, 60s educational setting. So at age 18, he dropped out of high school. He went to driving a truck at the shop that his dad worked at. Well, 1960s, 18-year-old. If you've not been to Niagara Falls, there's a bit of a dichotomy there. You think of Niagara Falls and you think of the park, and it's beautiful. That ain't in congruence with the rest of the community, all right? Niagara Falls is a very blue-collar, economically depressed area that has a lot of crime and a lot of socioeconomic problems. So it wasn't too long after that, Mark got his draft card, and he shipped out to Vietnam. Mark, or Tim, as he was known to friend and family, was killed in action on 4 October 1970, one day after his 20th birthday. And I know all these things to be true because he was my uncle. I never met him. He was the second oldest in a very large Italian Catholic family. And that guy impacted me more than anything. And I wanted to be him. My grandma would say, God, you're just like him, to the point where my son is Mark Timothy Arnold, because we're going to give that name another run in life. See if it can do a little bit better. So I was really driven to serve. And so as I got into like my late teens, I started thinking about what branch I want to select to go into. My mom pulled me aside and she said, hey, I love you. I support you, and I'm always going to be behind you no matter what you do. But as your mom, I'm asking you, please don't do this. So I didn't. I went ahead, went to school, and I wound up being a teacher. Here's what I learned about teaching. I enjoy teaching. I do not enjoy being a teacher. There is a difference. All right, so I was sworn in, and all those little micro decisions that I started making from that point led to me standing in front of you right now, right this second, today, giving this speech. And it's an excellent example of chaos theory. If you're not familiar with chaos theory tells us that there's lots of independent chaotic systems in life. And these laws and these principles that guide us are true, whether you see them or not. I don't need to tell you about gravity. If you go step off of a balcony, you understand what the result is, because it's tangible. You can see it, right? But there's these other forces, and I'm going to challenge you to start looking for them in your everyday life. Now, chaos theory is also known as the butterfly effect. Came from a meteorologist, Edward Lorenz, and he discovered the mathematic sensitivity of data input. Long story short, because we're on a clock, he put a set of numbers, 0.506127, think what a small number that is, 0.506127, into the computers in 1961, trying to generate some weather patterns. He got his result. Being a good scientist, he decided he was going to run those numbers twice, put the numbers in, left to get a coffee, came back, and noticed that there was a completely different weather result in his information. He couldn't figure out what happened. Looking back, he found that instead of putting 0.506127 in the second time, he only put 0.506. Eliminating everything from that, what is that, sir? 10th, 100th, 1000th point? Okay. That drastically changed, which came him to phrase it as the flap of a butterfly's wing in Brazil can cause a tornado in Texas. All these chaotic systems influence each other. That's why life is unpredictable. They are independent, but they do influence each other, which can be kind of daunting when you think about how many decisions you make. Researchers are telling us that we have about 30,000 to 35,000 decisions that we make a day. That's the metrics behind it. And life is outcome-based. We live in Vegas. Somebody developed basic strategy in blackjack to give you the very best opportunity to win your hand, but you can play perfect basic strategy and still lose. Conversely, you can break the rules and you can still win. But either way, your play affects the other players at the table. Okay? So that's a little bit daunting. How do we counter all this stuff? Then we're going to bring in another law, and that's the law of large numbers. And what the law of large numbers tells us is the more inputs that you have into a system, the closer you get to the expected outcome. You guys notice the little placards by the roulette tables? Right? You know, profits in Vegas skyrocketed when they put those in because people are looking at those results. Man, it hit red 5 times in a row. It's got to be due for a black, and it's not, because those are all independent events. There are no trends. There are no accidents. Everything happens on purpose. But the law of large numbers tells us the more that we do things right, the closer that we actually get to an expected event. If I flip a coin 10 times, what's the statistical probability when you flip a coin of a result? 50-50, right? So I should get 5 heads, 5 tails, right? Nope, I can get 9 heads and 1 tail. But if I flip that coin 10,000 times, law of large numbers tells us we're going to dial into about 50%. Why are we mentioning all this? It is extremely important when you look back at the metrics of the number of decisions that you make during a day to always do the right thing. You always have to understand that life is outcome-based. You can do everything right, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes you're going to make a mistake, maybe even cause a little bit of moral injury, but there may not be a consequence. We want to be dialed in, and we want to be in tune with that. If you can start looking for those principles in your life, it kind of gives you a little bit of peace. And peace is good. Gratitude is amazing. Go forward, be a good person, do good things. We're on the tail end of this presentation. I want to tell you, I bumped into 2 Afghans that worked at the embassy with me as security workers in the Dallas-Fort Worth airport 5 years and half world away. They had fled to the United States and actually found employment at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. They remembered me for how I treated them. Okay? You have no idea the ripple effect of your behaviors in life. Always do the right thing. Be a good person. Be grateful for what you have. Thank you for letting me be a part of your chapter. Thank you.